killing Genizah. They almost put it into shame, they almost hit it because there were certain verses in Yechezkel that on the surface were contradictory to the Torah. And they didn't want people, good morning, Nathan. They were concerned. Welcome back, Nathan. It's been a while. Israel. Okay. No better place than Israel. So we were learning in the Gemara that the Sefer Yechezkel. Morning, Ralph.
Morning, Rabbi.
There are certain psukim in Sefer Yechezkel that on the surface it seemed to be contradictory to the Torah, and even though they knew that Yechezkel was truth, but if on the surface people would misunderstand it, and they were thinking putting in Genizah and to hide it. But because of what the Gemara said, there was a certain Rabbi Hanania that went up to the attic, so to speak, and locked himself in, so to speak, meaning that he was focused on the project to interpret, to explain Sefer Yechezkel in a way that won't be contradictory to the Torah. And as a result of that, they saved the Sefer Yechezkel was saved. And Shabbat, we read that Torah was from Sefer Yechezkel, which spoke about the Zarate Alechem Mayim Tohorim. Spoke about we should one day Mashiach will come, we'll have the Mayim Tohorim will be purified again, and that was from Sefer Yechezkel. So we almost lost it but there's one person. I think it's a big musah. You can have one person that could take a project upon himself. And as a result of that, we have the Sefer Yechezkel today. I think that should be an inspiration for everybody.
Even the prophet Yechezkel didn't see what the maidservants saw at the Yam Suf.
Right. That's true. But the maidservant saw at the Yam Suf. We don't. Masha Yechezkel ben Buze, Masha Rata Shivcha Layam. The maidservant said Lo Rata Yechezkel ben Buze. Right. Was it the prophecy? The level of prophecy was, but that prophecy was not written down for Dorot. Whatever the Shivcha, whatever the maidservant saw at the Yam, it was not written down for a generation. His prophecy was.
But that comment that the Yechezkel prophecy was great, not that it wasn't great, that the Shivcha had even greater prophecy, but his was objectively great.
Right. I think the Balei Musa say, but the thing was, the problem was that the Shifcha remained the Shifcha. And she didn't, take the prophecy and run with it. Okay, we are on 14a 4. We spoke it out, but we didn't say it inside the Gemara. The Sefer my timer goes with Borabanan. We said that a Sefer, if a Sefer Torah, or it would seem it's going on all Sifrei Kodesh, all 24 books. That's it could also because Rashi says Kol Kisvei Kodesh. Rashi learns all Kitvei Kodesh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. Any of them, meaning if they're written in parchment, in a scroll form like we have it, if they're written in that fashion, like in Megillat Esther and so on, if they come in contact with Truma, that the Truma will become invalid for the Kohen to eat if it comes in contact with a Sefer. The Gemara wants to know, meaning it gave it a status of a Sheni, that the Sefer is like a Sheni. It's like a second level contamination, second level removed, meaning there's the Av, there's the dad, there's the source of the Tumah, then there's the one the dad comes to contact with, which is generation number 1, we call it Rishon. Then when that item that came in contact with the dad comes in contact with something else, that becomes the Sheni. It comes the second generation, like the grandson. You have the dad, son, the grandson. The grandson could invalidate Truma if it comes in contact with Truma.
It's not that it's a second generation Truma, but maybe it's so holy that therefore you can't eat it? Is it in a positive way rather than in a negative way?
Very good. Very good. So the Gemara says the issue was really, what's the issue? The Gemara says because people used to hide the truma. The Gemara is going to say now. Look what the Gemara says. Why should it's so holy? So why should there be contamination? You should say something that comes into contact with holiness, like you have a pasuk in the Torah that talks about kol asher yiga b'hem yikdash. Certain things that come into contact with holy will absorb the holiness, will have the status of that holiness. So why should it become contaminated? Amar Meshasha, morning Adam. In the beginning, they would hide the foods of Truma next to the Sefer Torah. Why did they hide it by saying?
Punishment, not the Sefer Torah.
Right.
Conducted too much of them, but rather, please don't put it there.
Right, exactly. And that's why we're going to, exactly. Why did they do that? Amru, they said, Hai Kodesh, Hai Kodesh. This is holy and that is holy. It could be that the people did this because they wanted people to realize this is holy stuff. The Truma is very holy. We're on 14a. We want the people to know, people are, don't treat the Truma like ordinary food. It is the special halachot. So they placed the Truma by the Sefer Torah. But what happened? And therefore, Kivan the Kachazi the Ka'atum Lidei Pseida. But the rabbi saw that the Svarim, the holy books, were getting ruined by the mice. The mice go after the food. And if the food is next to the Sefer, so what will happen? That the Sefer will be eaten. So therefore, the rabbis they decreed that the Truma would become contaminated or invalidated if it comes in contact with the Sefer. So therefore, people will not be bringing the Truma next to the Sefer, lest it'll become, then they won't be able to eat it. So therefore, now that was the reason. Therefore, it will prevent. That's why the rabbi said that if the sefer comes in contact with the truma would become invalidated to protect the sefer Torah or the other sefer kodesh according to Rashi. What's the reason for the yadayim? Why did the rabbi say that the hands are contaminated? So the Gemara says, Mishnei Yadayim Askaniyote. A person's hands move around. They touch dirty places. They might touch sweaty places in his body, other places that are dirty. When people don't even realize, your hands are constantly, you go on a train, you don't know where you touched. I mean, nowadays, but there's a lot of things that the hands are involved throughout the day. And it's not respectful to the truma that it should have contact with hands that are dirty, and furthermore, that the truma will become disgusted by the people that need to eat it when because if it came in contact with hands that were not clean. Therefore, Rashi uses the language, it is disgraceful to the truma, Rashi says, and it becomes disgusted to the people that eat it when it was touched with such hands. And therefore, the rabbis made a gzerah, and they said that the hands, if you don't wash your hands, the hands will ruin, will contaminate, will invalidate the truma until you wash your hands first. And by the way, that is one of the reasons. Good morning, Mark.
Hi, Rabbi.
Morning. This is one of the reasons why we just said, Mark, that if a person does not wash his hands before it comes in contact with truma, it will invalidate the truma. And the Gemara says, why will it invalidate the truma? Because we don't want the truma. It's disgraceful. It's not respectful for the truma that it should become disgusted through hands that come in contact with hands that are not clean. Now, in Shulchan Aruch, it says, when a person comes to eat bread,
That's whether he's tameh or not.
he could be 100% pure. A person could be 100% pure, right, Mr. Haber? Could be 100% pure, but throughout the day, when your hands, let's say a person could be pure, but at 12, but between every every hour, 2 hours of the day, you're not watching your hands. And who knows where your hands touch? Your hands might have touched things that are not clean, and it's not respectful for the truma that the truma should come in contact with hands that are not clean. And therefore, the rabbis said that if your hands
But
were
you're not referring to like eating or something like a dirty dish. You're referring to uh excretion or going to the bathroom or something like that, or your private part, right?
we refer to the fact that a person's hands, the Gemara says, person's hands are active. And because a person's hands are active, we don't know exactly, if we're not watching our hands, if we're not focused on our hands constantly, and we do different activities throughout the day, our hands get dirty, right? Our hands could get dirty. And then
Dirty, like I'm
basically,
planting, like I'm working in the garden and my hands got dirty, or dirty I went to the bathroom.
any of the above, any of the
Okay.
above,
Okay.
physical dirt that could come if your hands get dirty throughout different types of activities people do, and if you will be allowed to handle truma without washing your hands, it could make the truma not so pleasant, because your hands might have you might have touched truma in a way when it wasn't so sanitarily clean, and therefore that's now really it might be disrespectful for any food, but it's especially disrespectful for truma, for holy foods. Number one, you could be ruining the food, or you could be making it not so pleasant, not so nice. The people, the kohen that receives that food might not be so happy about how that food looks, how clean that food might be, and therefore it's not respectful for the truma. So out of respect for the truma, the rabbi said, if you don't wash your hands before you handle truma, you will be ruining the truma. Okay? Now, this reason was a reason they enacted in order to protect the truma. Today, we're very connected with this reason, because the Shulchan Aruch says that when you go to wash your hands, that you say hamotzi, you wash your hands even though you don't know that your hands became tameh. You don't know that they came in contact with things that will contaminate them. And the Chafetz Chaim explains the reason for washing one's hands for bread. There's two reasons. Number one, because of the truma that we're learning about right now. Because since the person's hands touch everything, and in the time period when tuma and tahira applied, and the kohanim ate truma, they needed to wash their hands rabbinically before they ate truma, in order they should not contaminate it with the touching of the truma. And in order that the kohanim should be accustomed to doing that, they made a gezerah on all Jews, even non-kohanim, that eat bread, that they have to go and they're not allowed to eat until they wash their hands. And nowadays also that the kohanim are not eating truma, they did not nullify, they did not stop this takana, in order that the Jewish people should be accustomed to doing this, that when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt, that will help them, that they're accustomed to doing it, and therefore they'll be doing this practice as well. And the second reason the Chafetz Chaim says is because of cleanliness and holiness, independent of truma. Just the idea. Right. So, right. So that is, like Nathan says, that saved the Jews. This idea of washing one's hands, and we constantly wash our hands. We get up in the morning, wash our hands. Before we eat bread, we wash our hands. saved many Jews from the Black Plague in the Middle Ages. Some of the Gentiles would blame us for the Black Plague, but they say, look, the Jews are not dying like the non-Jewish world is dying, but the reason why the Jews weren't dying is because the hygiene that we have, all the water that we're constantly involved with. It even says before you pray, you're supposed to wash your hands before you pray, not just in the morning, even by mincha, arvit. Your hands should be clean. Make sure your hands are clean, and therefore we're constantly washing our hands. Okay, so then the Gemara continues. We just said they made this zera on the hands, on the hands, and also the Gemara says, Tana af yadayim haboot machma sefer. That if, let's say, a person's hands, if your hands touched Kisvei Kodesh, meaning to say you have, let's say, a Sefer Torah, and if your hands touch the inside, you touch the scroll, by the letters of the Sefer Torah, your hands would also become tamei as a result of that. Your hands will now become contaminated. The Gemara says, what was the reason for this? Not only the Sefer Torah or the other Kitvei Kodesh, if they themselves come in contact with the Truma, they will invalidate the Truma. They even made a Gzeirah on the hands that came in contact with that. Now, the Gemara is going to explain, what do I need?
Wait. So if your hand, if you're a tumah and your hand touches the Sefer Torah, the cloth of the Torah, what happens?
Here, meaning, let's say you're not tamei. You're not tamei.
Oh, you're not tamei.
You're not tamei. Good morning, Emmanuel. And your hands touch the cloth of the Sefer Torah.
Right.
Your hands will now become contaminated. That if you will subsequently touch truma, you will invalidate the truma. Now, the Gemara is going to ask, what do I need a new enactment? What do I need an enactment for the hands touches the Sefer? If you told me even hands doesn't touch anything, you told me the hands are contaminated. The stam yadayim, hands, we said needs to be washed if you don't wash your hands. So what do I need a takana?
What's the extra thing of touching the Torah? Even if you're saying, even if you don't wash, you ruin the Tumah.
So I'm saying
the teruma.
So I'm saying here we're saying that your hands, a person's hands, even if they are a person's hands that we don't know that they're tamei, we don't know anything about the hands. Right. Tosfos is going to talk about Nathan's point, but the Gemara now is just stating the following fact. The Gemara is stating that a person's hands touch the cloth, the inside of the sefer. If it touch, let's say over here, now my hands, if I will touch truma, I will invalidate the truma. Before we said, just your hands, without your hands touching the
right, exactly,
they will contaminate the truma. So the Gemara is going to ask, what do I need? What do I need that? If you tell me your hands generally contaminate truma, what do I need to have to touch the sefer without touching the sefer? That's going to be the Gemara's question. Nathan's going to offer Tosfos' response, but we'll see how we'll work it through. So the Gemara says, what's the reason for this enactment? What's the reason for this enactment that if your hands touch the cloth, by the way, and this is a very big halacha that people need to be careful. We should not touch the cloth of the Sefer Torah. Right. But the Sfaradim should also be careful that when you touch, you should not touch the actual page of the Torah. Here's the Sephardi Torah standing like this. You don't put your finger on this and touch it directly with the hand. Maybe we'll look at the Shulchan Aruch on that.
When you're rolling it, you're touching the other side. You're touching the non-letter side when you're rolling it quickly.
Right, okay. And like Nathan points out, that, you
Don't
know,
you do what you see?
sometimes when the Torah, when the guy is doing the Hagbah by the Ashkenazim, sometimes they use the talit, the morning asaf, to help if the thing is not straight, they will use a talit to move it. They don't want to use the hand. You're not supposed to use directly your bare hands.
The Sephardi Sefer Torah, you don't want to touch the side with the letters. If you have to roll it quickly, you're not touching the side with the letters. Back also.
Yeah, but also they have the thing on the Sephardi Sefer Torah that you're moving something. You're not moving
Thing on the bottom.
right. Your thing on the bottom and the thing on the top, whatever they're moving. You don't put your hands on that. So the Gemara says, what's the reason for that? And now the Gemara explains, because Mishum the Rab Pranach, okay, Mishum the Rab Pranach, because of Rab Pranach. What did Rab Pranach say? The Omar Rab Pranach, Omar Rab Yochanan, the Ochei Sefer Torah Arum. If someone holds a Sefer Torah, when the Sefer Torah when it has no cover, nothing in between his hands and the Sefer Torah, meaning the Sefer Torah is like it's naked. There's no clothing on the Sefer Torah. You hold the Sefer Torah and there's something on it, then that's fine. You're touching the cover that's on the Sefer Torah. But if you're holding it without anything on it, your hands are directly touching the parchment. So the first statement, the Gemara has a recording, Nikba Arum, that person is going to be buried. If he's going to be buried naked, meaning he's not going to have the shrouds, the tashlichim that we generally bury a person with. And they want to say, hey, come on, sounds a little bit too much, right? But he's going to also be buried without anything. So the Gemara says, Arum Sakadaitach, do you think because he touched the Sefer Torah with his bare hands, that the punishment should be such a punishment that he should be buried without shrouds, without tashlichim, that he should be buried without anything? So the Gemara says, and the way it seems like the Gemara's question is where the commentaries say, the Gemara says that it's not. One opinion says that the Gemara's question is it's not logical. This should be such a great punishment to that level. So the Gemara says, Ela Ema, Ela Amar Rav Zera. What does it mean? Arum below mitzvot. That he loses. So the Gemara is going to say, it sounds like he says he loses the mitzvot that he did in his life. He's going to lose. He's going to be naked, empty from those mitzvot. I'm going to say, what do you mean? Because he touches this cloth, this part, he should lose his mitzvot that he did. The Gemara says, Ela'ema, he loses that mitzvah. That means the mitzvah, the reading of the Torah that you read. If you read the Torah, the place you put your finger on the Torah, if you're not being respectful for the Torah, so the reading that you did during that time that your hand was on that spot, on that is considered, you don't get credit for that reading. But for that specific reading, and the way I would explain it is like if you're being disrespectful, you're not showing the kavod, you're not showing respect, same way you understand when you do see, what bothered me, it was bothering me because, usually we have a concept, whatever you do wrong, there's a punishment. Whatever you do right, you get a reward. So why shouldn't he get rewards for the reading of the Torah? I'll get a punishment for not being for touching it with his hand. Yes.
Yeah, but I've heard that for the regret. So it's exactly the same case.
Right, but here, I would have thought that this is like a detail. Sometimes when you do something, I didn't do this part right, but that it should negate that whole reading of the Torah. I'm saying, but to me, right, it's a chidush. But it seems that because of this, we're looking at it as a real lack of respect for the Torah reading, and therefore you're not going to get credit for the reading of the Torah that you did while your hand was touching that place. Say it again, today? Right. He gets credit for that. Right. Tosfos said. So I'm saying, See, it's not clear in the Gemara. The Gemara did not make a difference between shogeg and mezid. So it's not clear if this punishment is only if a guy intentionally, he knew he should have done it, or yes, and in general, a guy is shogeg, a person's being a korban chatat on Shabbat. A guy did not know that he can't make a coffee on Shabbat, heat up the water, boil the water on Shabbat. It's a sin. It's an unintentional sin, but it's a sin. He has to bring a sin offering to Beit HaMikdash. So it's not clear if this is only if he intentionally, even unintentionally. But it could be the fact if you do a mitzvah in such a way that's disrespectful, so you're not going to get. I gave him a mashal. What's the mashal? The Gemara talks about honoring one's parents. If a guy goes ahead, if you honor your parents, you're giving your father to eat, but you throw the food at him, that I don't think you're going to get credit for. If a mitzvah to honor, to give food to my parents, but I threw the food at my father. I gave him with a sour face. Daddy, here's the food. Are you going to get credit for? No, I gave him the food. That's not. You're saying the whole thing is respect. It's not in respect, right? You want to say maybe that's not a good mashal, but I found it interesting because it really.
Put it down nicely.
But here the Gemara says it's chidush. Maybe that's why the rabbi is telling us something that we might not have looked at. My mashal is why try to right. I'm trying to understand why for the guy just putting his hand on that. Why do we just he loses the credit for the reading of the Sefer? What was bothering me is punish him for touching it and reward him for the reading. Just
about what you read.
So
in the same way that you threw the food, God forbid it, one's parent, you pre-negated what you're about to read by touching it. But I wanted to ask you a question about the Megillah.
Right, Megillah Esther, right? We're not very good. Now Nathan's asking. Right, we don't have this.
That's a good start.
Right. Yeah, but all the kids take right. But we said if I touch Kitvei Kodesh, and Rashi goes on record, he says if I touch Kitvei Kodesh, then I will, and then I subsequently touch Truma, I will invalidate the Truma. So the question is, when we're learning, would we say regarding touching the cloth itself? If I touch the parchment itself, is there a problem for me to put my hand on the Megillah Esther? Because we do find, according to Rashi, if I touch the Megillah Esther, if Truma touches the Megillah Esther, the Truma become invalid. Right? The same way. Why? Because we don't want the mice. We said we don't want the mice to come to the Sfarim. And we said so. All the Sfarim, we said if you touch if the Sefer would touch the Sefer would touch the Truma, it would invalidate the Truma. So and now we're saying about the hands touching and then we said the hands touch a Sefer. We said the hands touch a Sefer, it will go ahead and make the hands tameh, correct? Oh, and anything that's made, let's say that's made in a scroll form. No, that's not a whole. Maybe that's not a whole Sefer. Maybe that's only a part of a Sefer. You see. Yeah. So what's the story? Right. So we right when Megillah right. So we touch the Megillah the whole time. It's interesting to note the Chafetz Chaim actually recommends to wash your hands before Megillah Esther. I think he brings it down, but it's not. I don't think it's mandatory. But the bottom line is we are lenient. We do not say, we say that this prohibition of touching a Sefer with your bare hands applies specifically to a Torah scroll. That's how we in practice hold. we do not say that, but there are, now let's take a look at that law. Or, but I saw there is, that's our custom. So we obviously are making a difference between a Sefer Torah, about touching a Sefer Torah that's called disrespectful, and touching a Megillat Esther, which we say is not called disrespectful. So that is now if you look at right now if you look at Tosfot, the second Tosfot from the bottom, Tosfot says Ha'ochei Sefer Torah Arum. Tosfot says Ksat Mashma. It's not specifically a Sefer Torah. So Tosfot says the prohibition of touching a Sefer with your bare hands is not limited to a Sefer Torah. It's also all Kitvei Kodesh. Or wash your hands. Oh yeah, wear gloves, right? Or have a pointer. According to Tosfot, you would have to have. According to Tosfot, he says it seems, meaning the way he's connecting the two. Like Rashi says that it says all it says in Masechet Yedayim that in many shuls, in many yeshivot on Shabbat, they have a navi written on a parchment, a scroll. Just they have morning. I mean, not only is the Megillat Esther in a scroll form, but there is all, like he says, well, the Haftarah, exactly. So those Haftarah are part of a full Sefer. You take out Sefer Yonah, you take out Sefer, Yecheskel, Yirmiyah. It's a full Sefer. So that would one. The Haftarah would be right. So we're lenient on Haftarah also. But it's only a Sefer Torah that we won't touch with our bare hands. But Tosfos connects the dot. Tosfos says the same. All Kisvei Kodesh contaminate the hands, right? Like what Rashi said. If all Kisvei Kodesh, if you touch a sefer, that will contaminate your hands. So Rashi says. Tosfos says the same thing should be, the same law should be about you can't touch the cloth. But again, we hold
touch cloth when it's open. When it's walking around, they touch the cloth.
they look at it, they with their finger. So I think that's a mistake. That should be a big mistake.
There are some who don't use
Okay, so now
I don't know about the 9.
okay, so I'll tell you. So let's take a look at the Shulchan Aruch, Kuf Mem Zayin. It says the Shulchan Aruch says Osur. This is Rabbi Yosef Karo. This is Sephardi town, right? Osur lechol Sefer Torah arum below mitpacha. You cannot. It's forbidden to touch the Sefer Torah if it's naked, so to speak, without some sort of right, the letter side. That's how he doesn't explain which side, but that's how we. Right. You
shouldn't do
but because he's afraid that maybe he's concerned you might touch it with your bare hand. Maybe that's why he might be looking at it like maybe it's a problem because your hand might be touching. But
I put it in his face. It's soft enough.
Now,
There's the risk when one touches one, you see the part of your finger somehow leans forward.
so that's so the Shulchan Aruch says you cannot touch a Sefer Torah without some sort of intermediary, and that will become the question would be between you and your brother. If you have an intermediary, so you're not directly touching it, is that called a problem if your hand actually does touch it? That's a good question, right? You have some sort of intermediary, is that considered enough or not? The Ramah, the Ashkenaz rabbi in the Shulchan Aruch says, some say it applies to all Kitvei Kodesh. That's our discussion. Not only a Sefer Torah or not. But he says we don't hold that. That's not our custom. But he says it's good to be stringent if you didn't wash your hands it's good to be stringent, not to touch the Megillat Esther. That's the recommended way. I'm not. It doesn't seem that that's the custom. We don't see anybody making that announcement. Oh, the purpose of. Okay, very good. So because the Gemara said here, it says because it's not it might not be respectful for the scroll that your bare hands touch it. I mean that your bare hands. Now it could be your hands might be dirty. You know, but or the Gemara didn't. Say it again. I mean that would come out according to one one opinion. We should wash our hands before touching the. But he says a Sefer Torah doesn't help if you wash your hands, right? Sefer Torah doesn't help. You can wash your hands today, tomorrow. You can't touch the writing side. Okay, so let's continue in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, "Ela oram below ota mitzvah." You'll be missing that mitzvah if you went ahead and if you touch the Sefer Torah with your bare hands. That in itself is not respectful. Even if your hands were washed, it's not respectful for you to touch the Sefer Torah. So the Gemara says, "Hi gazo bereisha." Which enactment did you make? We said we have two enactments over here about the hands. We said one, your hands will invalidate truma. Then we have another exera that if your hands touch the sefer, your hands will invalidate truma. The Gemara said, what's that again? No, the Gemara said if your hands touch the sefer. Your hands touch the sefer, it will invalidate truma. Meaning you weren't respectful to. Now, what's the reason for this? You weren't respectful for the sefer. You touch it with your bare hands, and we want to prevent you from touching a sefer with your bare hands. How are we going to prevent you from touching a sefer with your bare hands? Penalty. We're going to penalize you. If you touch a sefer with your bare hands, and those hands touch truma, you will invalidate the truma. So therefore, you're going to be careful not to touch the sefer with your bare hands. But there are consequences, right? What's the consequence? Only the Kohen eats truma. What do you mean? What?
The only penalties that you are talking about now
Is
for Kohanim.
Right.
What about for the rest of us?
Yeah, everybody else touches the Sefer Torah, touches their mouth. Okay, so big deal. I validated it. Doesn't affect me.
Okay, but first of all, it's you're not allowed to validate truma. It affects you. If you're a Yisrael and you have truma that you're going to be giving to the Kohen, you're not allowed to do something to cause a validation to the truma.
Take another part, make that.
Yeah, but you're not allowed. The Yisrael is not allowed to do something to make truma not valid for the Kohen to eat.
You know, when you're reading and you touch it, it invalidates your reading. That's very directly tied to the mitzvah and the avon.
That's correct, right?
This feels like it's from left field.
Okay. To be continued. TBC. What? Okay. Yeah. But thank you too. Thank you for coming. Okay, have a great day, everybody. Good to see everybody on. Take care, Ralph. Take care, Asaf. Take care, Emmanuel.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.